what's going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to video number 3 in the Spline Street Constructor video tutorials series. That's right, video number 3. So how many of you guys did not know there was going to be a video number 3? Oh, I know, probably not many, but there is, and we're going to learn a heck of a lot more this time around. Last time, a lot of talking, a lot of going over the actual program interface, stuff like that. But this time we're going to jump right into it. We're going to do nothing but make roads and explain a lot of things along the way, right? Got a lot of examples to show you, so I'm going to quit my yapping and we're going to jump right into it, right? No wasting time this time, okay? All right, we got that out of the way with the last video. All right, so where I left off last time is I had these two intersections that I made here, right? Flattened everything out, laid them down really nice and neat. And I left off by making the roadway itself and laying that down. All right, and that's where we're at right now. Okay, so what you got here is you can see all the objects that I laid down, right? Now, you want to keep in mind that when you're using your spline and you're laying these objects down, all right, it's the spline. You can think about it this way. It's either the spline itself or the very bottom of, I think about it this way, not so much the spline, but it's the very bottom of these posts here, okay? That's going to be the surface of the roadway. So like if I had some kind of, say this was up in air a little bit, my intersection here, right? And I could grab this post and I could lift that up, and that's what the road's going to do. The road is going to follow the bottom of these posts. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're making your roads. All right, so you can maneuver or reposition these posts any way you want if that's the way that you want the road surface to go when you lay it down. Okay, so it's not necessarily the spline. It starts out that way, but if you move the posts at all, the road is going to follow the post, not the spline. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to spline placement here, and I'm going to delete everything that is all these posts. I'm going to get rid of them. All right, so that's the first step. They're gone. All right, now the splines that you have here, right? You can see one here on the left and one on the right. Now those come in handy, extremely handy, when you're doing your overall map, when you're working on your traffic system, because now you don't have to put these splines down. They're perfectly centered. They perfectly follow the contour of your road, and it just can't get any better than that, right? It cannot, trust me. Now, the one thing you're probably going to have to do is you're still going to have to come in and put in your turns and stuff like that. But I would rather do that all day long than to have to lay down all these splines in every one of my maps. All right, so now you have a spline right and a spline left. Now you're going to notice here's my start and my end is way down here. And that's right for, in America anyhow, or certain parts of the world, and driving on the right hand side, starting here, going that direction. So that would be correct. But when you hop over to the other lane, well, that goes in the same direction. That's not good. All right. You want one car going in one direction, the other lane of traffic, you need going in the other direction. So just pressing R for Romeo on your keyboard will fix that. That will reverse your spline, and now you have each of them going in the right direction. Okay, so normally what I would do from here is I would take these two splines, Control H to hide them, and then I would highlight that RD1 as well, Control G to turn it into a group, and then just rename that into RD1. All right, so that's road 1. Now all I really did is I just got those objects out of my way so I can see what the heck is going on down there. I would typically do the same thing with the spline that's there. Let's see, where did I put this? Road system, maybe? There we go, road system. I should have one here that says layout. Where did I put that? Roadway layout. Okay, so this spline right here, didn't have to look too far for that, I guess. And I'll hide that one. This way I can have a good look at my road. I can see what's going on and I know what's what. Okay. Now I would take this road here typically. Now I'm gonna make some changes here, but I'm just going to show you what I normally do. Is I'm going to take this road and I'm going to use my middle mouse button, drag that up in the road system, right? And then I'm going to highlight that, Control G, turn it into a group, and that is going to be my streets. Okay. So like I said, keep everything organized. It's only going to help you out in the long run. And it's also going to help the people that come in there and like to take your map apart and make all kinds of changes. Now they can find all, they can find all your stuff, and they don't have any problems making changes to your map. All right, so all in all, this looks pretty good. All right, this does not look bad at all. I would drive on that roadway. How about you? All right, it looks pretty good. I do like it. Now my intersections don't match, of course. They're a different color, and we'll fix that in a little bit. And the other thing that I want to fix is right here where the two made up. I'm not too crazy about this one, only because, you know, this is a little bit of a fatter line on this road and not so much on this road. Now, I did use two different surfaces, so, you know, that may be what's causing that. Chances are what is causing it is the, what did I do there? Having a hard time thinking about it. Thinking of the right term there. Subdividing. That's right. I subdivided my intersection. Thank you very much for the help. I subdivided the intersection, and that gave me a nice clean line, a skinnier line. But now it also does not match, you know, the lines on my street. Now, the other thing that I see that I have going on here is see how much, like, see how long that line is. It doesn't look bad. You know, normally you wouldn't even notice, right? If you jumped onto a map and start playing this, you probably wouldn't notice. But maybe you want that a little bit shorter. Okay. So here's where, you know, when we were going over the program itself, learning all these different, you know, what this does and what that does, that's where a lot of this is going to come in handy. Okay. We're going to do some experimenting here. Now, let me turn on my left and right traffic splines. Have a look at my settings. Now you can see my settings now have changed. This isn't where I had them last time. I got 11111 all the way down to 30, and that's probably going to work okay for me. I'm not really going to have to do anything different there. Like I said, in most cases, your default values are going to work pretty good. Now, minimum length, sometimes I like to change that because, you know, that has a lot to do with the subdivision and stuff like that, especially the minimal angle. Being at 1, I like that to be a little bit bigger. I think I usually tend to keep this one around 5. Minimum length, that can probably stay at 1. Bending we'll maybe put at 10. All right. But these are not written in stone. I want you to understand that. I know a lot of you guys watching this video, you know, are going to freeze the video right here and go, okay, what are those numbers? I need to write them down exactly. Not really. What you need to do is go over to the directions, read the instructions, know what every one of these settings do. Yeah, that's what you need to do. You need to know what every one of these settings does. All right. So, you need to know what every one of these settings does. Okay. What they mean, read it, reread it if you have to, because in the future, you're going to run into some kinds of issues where you're going to be playing around in here. And this is generally what's going to fix some of those issues. Now, this is probably going to be the only time you hear me say this. But at some point during making some of the roads in this video, I kind of hope that we run into these issues. I don't always hope for issues. I really don't. All right. But in this case, I really like the opportunity to show you guys how to get past some of these things that happen. And they do happen. Now, I just did a 4-kilometer map on, I did the roadway for it anyhow, one of my next maps. And this is not Rocky Mountain. Rocky Mountain's in the past. We're still working on that one. I mean, the testing is pretty much done to a point, the bulk of the testing. And not by yours truly. I did my own testing, but certain ones of you guys out there, put it that way, have gone above and beyond in helping with testing. And I appreciate it more than you would ever know. So, like I said, for the rest of you guys out there that get to play Rocky Mountain error free and have a really good time doing it, there's other subscribers that you can thank for that. All right. So those guys are probably, as long as they're willing, will definitely play, an integral part in testing maps as long as they want to. All right. But anyhow, let's get that out of the way. So like I said, with these settings, they are not written in stone, so you don't need to use my settings, right? And I change these as I go, depending on how my roads are acting when I lay them down. Sometimes they do something a little bit different, and I'll change these. Now, I will show you when the time comes what I changed them to, but for right now, that's really not important. We're good with what we have here. You can use the same numbers. It's fine. Everything should work out all right. All right, so now we had those lines going down the middle of the roadway, looked a little bit too long. I decide that I don't like that. Okay, I want to lessen them. I want to cut them down a little bit and shorten those lines so they don't look quite the same. All right, so that's where this length comes in, roadway texture lengths. All right, so we're going to take that from 20 and we're just going to cut that in half. All right, let's see what that does. All right, now when we imported the spline, okay, this is something, we'll go over this a few more times. This is not the only road we're going to make here. I'm trying to hurry it up so we don't end up with another hour and 20-minute video. Or if we do, we can fit a heck of a lot of information in there. All right. But anyhow, the spline points down here, when you're importing your spline, it is not the spline itself that you're importing, right? It was the objects that we placed. That's why I went to placed objects and I exported that, right? I even named my my i3D placed object. So I know that that's what I'm exporting. I didn't name it spline or anything else because I'm only using the spline to lay down the objects. I'm not doing anything else with it. That is it. That spline in no way, shape, or form will ever see the inside of Spline Street Constructor, which is odd because it is called Spline Street Constructor. Well, they do create splines too. So, hey, there you go. But anyhow, the spline points, you can tell we imported 152 points. So we know we had a pretty good import, right? You'll know when you go clear across a map and it says like 1,500 and I've done it and it works. Trust me. So anyhow, we know that we got a good import. Everything is good. That's it. I can just go ahead and I can recreate that roadway. There we go. All right. So from here, we don't even really need this roadway anymore. What I tend to do, sometimes it all depends on the situation, I guess. If this works, there we go, is I'll just hide the road that's there, right? Control H, I'll hide that. And then I'll bring the next one in and see what we have from there. Okay. So in the roads, let's go to completed road, drag that back in. And whoa, that does not look too good. Let's try that one again. Apparently I did not put my texture in there when I opened up the program today. Okay, let's delete that and try that one more time. All right, back into the Street Constructor. We're going to go to my texture and we're going to pick road. I thought I picked that. Maybe not. All right, try that again. Okay, we're going to import our roadway here really quickly. Completed road, and you go. There we go. All right, so now by comparison, right, you can see how much differently our lines look down the middle of that road. See how nice and short to me that's a better look, right? You know, I might have to hop on the internet and do a little bit of research and see how long these lines typically are. But I think that they look better shorter, right? So we can unhide this one, Shift H, right? So we can toggle back and forth to see which one, looks better here. And use our visibility, right? Now you can see the difference there. Those big lines, little lines, big lines, little lines. So this is going to be personal preference, right? Whatever you decide, right? So you can see the difference that the length made, all right? Now, let's say you have a road that doesn't have the lines down there, right? Sometimes your roads have maybe an asphalt texture or something like that. You may notice that it's not the lines that look stretched out. Maybe your texture itself looks a little stretched, a little warped, a little fuzzy, right? So that's a good way to try to correct that. Cut down on your length and see what it gives you, all right? This is what I mean about experimenting. Don't just keep freezing the video and copying my numbers, verbatim, I guess would be the right word, right? Because everything is different. Your textures might be different, right? Your situation might be different. So these are the things that you're going to need to experiment. You're going to have to go in there if things don't look quite right, or even if they do look okay, still try to change it and say, oh, wow, that looks better. Or, whoa, that does not look better. Okay. So you're going to need to, kind of work that one out for your own. So now at least you know what the length does. So that's a pretty good example right there. Okay. So now I decide that I'm going to keep this road so I can Control H on that. Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to keep this road here. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete my other road as well. Get rid of that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. Whoa. I'm going to go back into my Street Constructor. And I'm going to pick this Farbon. Yeah, that's it. Farbon 2525. Because that's going to match my intersections. All right. That was pretty much the only thing I wanted to do is give you that one example of the length, of how to mess with the length there. And while I'm at it, you do not need the texture width, right? So you don't have to put in the width of your texture unless you're going to mess with the beginning and end and you're going to do something with that. Like I said, remember that there are times where that comes in handy. I showed you that during the crossing constructor when you want to, cut off the edges of a roadway for whatever reason. That will come in really, really handy. All right. Now, it's not something I use too often, but every now and then the situation does arise. And even if it doesn't, it's good to know what it does. Don't be a dummy, okay? All right. So we're going to pick Farbon 2525. Let's pick that. All right. Run my road one more time. And let's see. Let's bring that bad boy back in here. See what we got. Whoa. Didn't want to do that. All right. Double clicked on it. There we go. Uh-oh. I was going to say something didn't look good. A lot of times I've noticed when I start getting that thinking sign coming up a lot, like in the Giants editor, it's going to crash at some point, right? And usually if that comes up too many times, I quickly hit save so I don't lose any of my work, right? So I'll save it and then I'm good to go. All right, so now we can have a look and we can see what we got here, okay? So let's do the same thing here. Let's hide our splines, all right? Oops. Hide each one of these. It's not like they're really in the way. It's just me being anal about things there. Okay, and we're going to turn that back into its group that says RD1. Click off of that. All right, so yeah, there's still a little not quite the way I like them. Now, at least the textures themselves match, but I still want to do something about that, all right? Now, I do like that this is a nice clean look. Nothing looks too warped, but this kind of bugs me a little bit. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the crossing constructor, and I'm going to make sure that this, no, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but basically this subdivision, I'm going to make sure that's unchecked, okay? And I'm going to give that another go where I'm going to, let's see, let's find my intersection here. And I'm going to run that one more time. Which was my intersection here? I need my, I am on Farbon 2525. Make sure though. Make sure it's the right one. I don't need any white intersections in here. All right. So was that the, all right, 180/40. So like I said, it's not a big deal if you need to remake one of these intersections, right? You can just, come in here and retype that was at 180 and 40, right? All right, then we just click go. Okay, now let's bring that back in here. Let's go into, shouldn't have used that one. Intersection, let's drag that back in. All right, so let's just Control B and make sure that looks good. All right, so now it looks a little more warped, but wait, that is not the right intersection. Is that the right intersection? Yeah, it is. It just looks a little weird. All right, so a good way to do this now, if you guys have not played with this, this is something that you're going to need to learn. You really want to learn, okay? So highlight the intersection that we have there, right? This 180/40. I'm going to hit Control W. That's going to bring up this replace box, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to leave that right where it's at. We're not going to try and reline, line up anything all over again. We're going to click the end. We already have the first one up there, target, right? That's this one that we first clicked on. We hit Control W, and that brought that up as our target. The target is the one that we want to replace, and then replace with. We have this one highlighted here because that's what we want to replace it with. We're going to load that. Everything else can stay unchecked. That's not a big deal. We'll just go ahead and hit replace really quick. And there you go. So it replaced it for us. No big deal. This bottom one, we can just go ahead and delete that. We don't need it anymore. And you can see right away that things look way better, way better than what it did. So it's kind of a trade-off at this point, right? Now, my line here is a little bit warped. It's a little fat looking, right? That kind of looks like the smiley face, but I guess I'm okay with that because this lines up, right? So this, in some respects, could look normal if you didn't know that it could look any other way, right? If this is all you've ever seen, you're like, oh, it looks right to me. But if you're used to seeing the skinnier lines, you're like, well, something's up with that. But to me, it's a trade-off because my OCD just really had an issue with that not lining up right. And now it just lines up perfect. You went through all that work to make sure your spline was perfectly centered and everything was laid out good. So, you want to have it line up and you want to have it look good, right? And that's half of the battle there, right? When your players are playing your map, you know, you don't want them to, you know, drive across an area and go, oh God, could have done a little bit better there, right? So you want to try to minimize that as much as possible. All right, so same thing for this intersection over here. We're going to redo that one. That's a 115/70, right? So let's bring that back up. 115 and 70, and we will go. Okay, let's drag that back in. Intersection, there we go. All right, now same thing. We'll click on this. We'll hit Control W. We'll highlight the one that we want to replace with. We're going to hit load on that and then replace. Okay, there we go. And it looks way better already. Way better. I am okay with that. All right. Now there may be a way. Now I haven't really done it. Depends on your textures. You know what? I don't know. I haven't found it yet, but there might be a way to maybe not subdivide, because we've already doing some subdivision on your roadway itself. So the lines get a little bit skinnier on the roadway, but I kind of don't think so. The road should be a fairly normal texture, right? There's not much more that you can do to shrink down the sides of your road. It's a little bit different, you know, with your intersection, just because of the subdivision that's going on. All right. Now, depending on the type of angle you have, you know, how big of a sweep or short of a sweep, or sharp, should I say, of an angle that is, it really affects, you know, how warped this looks. Like you can see that this one really doesn't look that bad, you know, compared to the other one. That other one has, you know, much more of a, you know, warped look to it than this one does. But in any case, I'm okay with it. You know, that's really not so bad. All right. So from here, we just need to figure out where we're going from here. Let's lay down our next road. All right. So I say that we can shoot on over to this intersection. This looks a little interesting. I'll approach it from this angle right here. All right. Now, for these guys, I think I mentioned in the last video that the protractors I was going to make available to you guys, and I have done that. I have kept my word, and I made that available to you. If you go over to BauerBrown.com, you can go to downloads. Now, the spline placement, the version 1.3 that I use for my roadways, I made that available. So you can head on over there and you can download that if you want. You can go to, let's see, the miscellaneous downloads, I believe. This doesn't take 10 years to load the web page. I'm not really happy with this web server. But Crossing Constructor here, that I had updated with the protractor pack is already in there. So if you want to make use of the protractors, that comes with the Crossing Constructor now. Or if you already have the Crossing Constructor, don't feel like downloading again, you can download just the protractor pack, right? And that has one solid, and that has one, matter of fact, let me download that one myself. Make sure it works. I don't think I even tested this. Wouldn't that be embarrassing if it didn't work? But I made one solid, one completely opaque, and the other one you could actually kind of see through here. And somebody's not logged in. Yeah. Well, anyhow, here you can see on the screen here how one of them is you can see through it, which is kind of nice. I don't really want to get into all that right now. Anyhow, so let's get our protractor back out. Let's find out what I did with mine here. I don't want to waste any more time than I need to. There's my protractor. It's hidden. Okay, so remember, we're going to Control B. We're going to, whoa, that is large and in charge. My goodness gracious. All right, let's raise that up a little bit. Can't see. There we go. Always remember that on your, well, man, why am I drawing a blank left and right tonight on your Gizmo? Right? If your handles don't look quite the way they should, right? Your, zero wants to be where you're standing. Remember that. If your Gizmo, if your arrows aren't there, right? If they don't look quite right, just scroll through with like E or something like that. Usually E is what I use, and that'll get you back so your arrows show up again. And the reason it was goofed up is because I hit R to reverse my spline. All right. And that also affected, you see that? It affected the rotation on my Gizmo. So putting E, just hitting E will bring that back to where it needs to be. All right, so I got my protractor. Remember that when you use your protractors, okay, That 0 is where you're going to be standing and you're going to be facing away. Remember, see how this blue arrow? Almost in every case, if it's a vehicle, it's going to, face away from you. That's the direction a vehicle is going to be going. Maybe it's a spawn point, right? And the spawn point, that blue arrow is going to be the direction you're facing. All right. So everything normally goes in the direction of the blue arrow. And this is no different, right? The blue arrow needs to face away from you. 0 is going to be where you're standing, which is where I'm standing right now. All right. I got it lined up in the middle of the street. Looks pretty good. So I know my first branch. Remember now that how many of you guys hopefully remember this? Okay. Let me go into my fancy schmancy toolbox here and find my pencil. All right. Because you know how much I like that pencil. All right. So remember, we're starting at 0 right here. This is where we're starting. All right. X marks the spot. We're going to be standing here. Okay. Now, when we work these angles, we're going to go counterclockwise. Right. And we're basically counting our first stop. We can just take the degrees. Now, don't be a dummy like I did last time. Look at your arrows, which direction you're going, right? So we're going to be using this inner circle, not the outer one. Don't do me, right? I am definitely a special case when it comes to that. So that is the direction we're going. We're going clowner. We're going counterclockwise, like so, right? And we're going to go up to where our first stop is. And let's say that should be, I don't know. What do you say? About 190, right? Something doesn't seem right about that. Damn it. See, I did it again. I'm on the outer ring. Man, I got to stop with that 170. That's why it didn't seem right, because I didn't even go 180 degrees. Ay. All right. So 170 right here is where I'm going to try. Okay. Remember the inner ring. Remember that arrow I literally just told you about and it said, remember to use the inner ring. Don't be a dummy like me. And I still use the outer one. My goodness gracious. All right. You would think maybe I'll update the protractor pack that it only includes like the inner, it goes in the right direction. But there has been times where I use that outer ring. That's the only reason I keep it there. All right. So first stop, we're going to put at 180. It's going to be 180 degrees. Okay. Now my second stop, I say, and you can draw a line. Well, only I have the ability to draw lines right now. Okay. But right there in between 230, it's a 235. It looks like, right? And if you needed to, you can use a calculator and just go from like 170 to, 235, whatever that comes out to, right? So that's basically all I wanted to get across to you is remember that you're going counterclockwise, right? So you're counting your first stop. Let me get rid of this pencil here. All right. So you're counting your first stop at 170. All right. So you want to plug that in. So first, we are going on a crossing constructor now. All right. So first stop at 170. All right. And what did I say? The next one was 235. So what would that be? 65. All right. Now, remember this part because this is easy to forget. So we remembered we had 170 degrees to our first stop. From our first stop to our second stop, we're not taking the actual reading. We're just counting the number of degrees to our second stop and each consecutive stop after, right? It's only that first one where we're taking the actual reading off the protractor. Everything else, first or second stop, third stop, fourth stop, we're just counting how many more degrees we need to go and where we can mark that second one, right? So if we had a third one, somewhere down in here where this tree is, I would just count the number of degrees, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, whatever, right in here. Okay, so you get the idea. So just keep that in mind. Now you're not taking the actual protractor reading. You are just counting the number of degrees. All right, so with that being said, let's check this out and see what kind of intersection we get out of this. We're going to hit the go button. All right. Let's get ourselves back up into, stop doing that. Bring our intersection back in. All right. We can control B. Now remember, this is the same way with this one. When you line this one up, the blue arrow goes away from you, okay? And I'd say that looks pretty dang good. It looks to me like this intersection here, the left-hand branch is a little bit off. That 235 might have been a bit extreme, so maybe we can go 230 with that. So we're going to knock 5 degrees off of this. 60, we'll hit go again. All right. And like I said, a lot of this, sometimes you're going to do this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. You never know until you get it right. Eventually you will get better and better. And the protractor helps a lot. It really does. All right. So let's get this one out of the way first. Move that out of the way. And we'll bring this one over. All right. Line up our blue arrow, same way that we're facing. Oh, yes. That looks much betterer. Oh, yeah. I'm in love with that one right there. That's a thing of beauty, eh? All right, so this other one, we can get rid of that one so it doesn't confuse us. Okay, now from here, like I said, from the last one, you want to make sure that this area here for your intersection is level, all right? Because you can see right here, look how far that one sticks up. That is quite the drop. All right, now this has been my experience that on really hilly areas like this, right? It's going to be a bit of a challenge for these intersections, all right? Because your road doesn't make a smooth transition anymore. It's coming down real smooth. It's leveling out, and then it's, continuing its downward slope. Same thing with here, and you're going to kind of make a little bit of a lip here, all right? With this flat, it's like this flat top here. If you were to come barreling down that road, just hauling ass down that road, here we come, and you hit this, right? You can literally launch yourself off of that. So you really need, that's the one thing you need to be careful. And 2, that's what I don't like about the street or the crossing constructor, right? Because it does need to be flat. Now you can continue your road, normally and just make it follow the slope all the way down. But when you bring your next road in, you're never going to be able to get that to mate up nicely. You can't tuck it underneath that road. It's going to be a major pain in the you-know-what, right? Definitely. It's going to be a pain in the ass. It definitely is. So you want to keep this in mind when you're making your roads, all right? That you're going to, at each intersection, it's going to be a flat area. So what you could do, all right, now, like I said, last time I split the difference, so I didn't have such a bad dip here, right? But what you could do is once you get this lined up, I don't know if I really want to split that difference still or try to keep this one. See, and if I keep it lined up here, this upper branch, right? If I make that one semi-flush, I got a heck of a big, what do you call it down here? A big gap. But what I could do is use Control R, or not Control R. Well, kind of. I'll use the replace function, right? So I'm going to go, let's try that this time and see how this works out. Now, what you might want to do is save it before we start messing up our intersection. Go ahead and save it. All right. Now we're going to go into our right mouse button. We're going to make that replace. And we're going to turn these up just a little bit. Maybe hardness I didn't need to turn up, but we'll turn them up just a little bit. So it's not taking us all day to do this. Now we're going to hit Control R and sample the area, right, where we want that to be. Now the reason I kept this flush at the top is so as I come down this road, I don't have that hard bump there where I have a dip. I'm going to have to try and smooth out this area on this side so it makes a nice even transition. All right. I know it probably doesn't sound right the way I'm explaining it, but it makes sense in my head. So don't pick on me. Okay. Or you can pick on me and I could not care. That's kind of the way that goes. All right. So I'm using Control R and I'm leveling out, and you can see how much of a difference there is here, quite the difference. And remember that you have that slope tool that we can also work with. And that's what we're going to do here to try and level this out here, right? So you could actually take off of some of this, but this really doesn't look bad. This looks like a pretty decent slope that we have going on there now, right? So it doesn't look like that much of a hard bump, you know, when it comes down in there. All right, let me get off of this right mouse button because we did what we needed to do there. I'm going to lower these down just a little tiny bit. And I'm just going to smooth this out so I can see how it looks. All right, that's not too bad. I can deal with that, right? So maybe you can put a sign there that says slow bump or something like that. All right, so let's just smooth that out. All right, so from here, all right, so there is a lot of work that needs to go into these streets. It's not just plopping everything down. Most cases it is, but when you get into something like I have here with this really hilly area, this is going to make a difference. So let's take our middle mouse button. We're going to make that set slope target. Right mouse button, we're going to have in the slope. Let's turn our opacity up a little bit. Actually, let's turn our opacity up a lot. All right. Our value, we're going to turn that up a lot. We're going to use our middle mouse button and set the slope target right there at the edge of our roadway. All right. And we're going to start somewhere pretty far back. Let's widen this up a little bit, man, about the width of our roadway. Use our right mouse button. There we go. We'll drag that right up there. So that's not too bad. Maybe I can go a little bit wider, a little bit higher on the value and the opacity. Okay, so that does not look too bad. I think I'm okay with that. Well, I'm going to come back and I'm going to smooth that out a little bit. But for now, it's almost like I know what I'm doing. All right. So let's do the same thing on this side. Set our slope target over here. All right. See, now the further back you start, right? See, because right here, I made this kind of like a bump here, this pretty bad bump. If I'd have started further back, I'd kind of minimize that. But sometimes you take the good with the bad, you know, here's what it is. Let's start here. Whoa, why did that come back? That's not really what I was looking for. Try that one more time. And turn the opacity up a little bit. And yeah, it seems like my let's get that up here. I'm going to have to smooth that out a little bit. Middle mouse button. Let's put that back to smooth. Whoa, easy there, big guy. All right, so let's try that again. I'm going to set my, use my middle mouse button, set slope target. We're going to move that out just a little bit to right here. There we go. All right, let's try that one more time. Okay, we should be good. Widen it up a little bit. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Way better. Way better. All right. So now, I mean, the only thing about this now is, you know, you got this little bit of a hill here on both sides. Well, maybe not so much. Yeah, it is on the other side too. But it's not the end of the world, right? So it's only this area here, and it keeps your roadway a lot better, right? Now it's again going to be personal choice. If you want to try to mate this roadway up to it without having to do all this, again, that's going to be your decision. You know, you're going to have to experiment with these things and see, you know, what gives you what. There's lots of different ways to do it. You know, like I said, keep in mind that you don't even need to do this with your roadway because, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute, because you work with the spline. I've done this both ways, and I'm going to show you what I mean. All right, so let's just save this real quick. Okay, make sure everything is saved. Maybe on the next intersection, I'll show you. All right, so let's go back to where we were. Let me set these back to where they were so I don't forget what was what. Right mouse button, subtract. Middle mouse button, smooth. Let me turn down my values so I'm not making mountains in the middle of the street. All right. So let's get ourselves back here to where our intersection was. All right. And get me out of that sculpt mode. Now from here, if you want, you could highlight your intersections and you can drag those up to where they belong. Middle mouse button, remember that. Hey, what's going on here? Hey. All right, something is not liking it. That's not going too good there. Let me try one at a time. Hey, what is going on? All right, maybe I don't want to move my intersections quite yet because it doesn't seem to like it for whatever reason. Hey. And you have to use your middle mouse button. All right, I'm going to do it one more time. Something doesn't feel right in my mouse when I do it. Nah, I don't know. Something's really weird with that. Normally it would just stop right there, but. All right. Anyhow, what I was going to say is to highlight your intersections, use your middle mouse button and move them up there to where they belong. I'm going to need that to work though, because for what I'm going to do next, we're going to need that to work. All right. So remember, next step, we're going to go up there. We're going to create our spline. Now this other spline here, right? We deleted from our old road, our last road. We deleted all the objects. The spline is hidden. Do not delete that spline. Hit Control G, right? And rename that group splines. And you're going to hold on to that until the very end of your road system, all right? Because there's going to be times where you might want to do something different. You might want to try something different. It happens for me more times than I can count that I'm like, damn it, I wish I had that spline. Where I either need to rerun that spline because now I want to try something different, do something different. That spline, it's going to come in handy. Do not get rid of your old splines. Put them into a group and just leave them be, right? So if you ever need it in the future, it's there. You can come back to it. And there's a pretty good chance that sooner or later, you're going to need it. All right. So the new spline we have right there. Remember, we want to work with this intersection. So we're going to hit Control X. We're going to hit Cut, highlight our intersection, Control V. Okay, so we got that. Oops, my bad. I wanted to get on the branch of the intersection. Sorry. Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Dang it. All right, so now we can, what was that, the second one? See, now I don't even know what it was. Oh my God. It's going to be one of them nights, I can tell. All right, go to the spline, Control X again. There we go. Now Control V into the branch. All right, now this should be interesting because I need my middle mouse button to drag this out of here. There's spline placement. Click that. Ah, oh, I almost had it. Man, I don't understand what's going on there. Yeah, what the heck? That kind of worked. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to think here if this splines. No, I think splines is good there. All right, so now that we got that down. Now, do you remember, I hope you do, because this was only one video ago. What I did is when I laid down this last spline, I wasn't really paying any particular attention to, you know what? None of my buttons are working the way I want them to. I wasn't paying any particular attention to keeping my spline points, my control vertexes like close together. I didn't really care so much about, you know, following the contour of the road because I was using this CSV creator to do that for me. You don't have to do that. That's a step that I have in there that you don't need to have in there. Okay. You can do this. Sorry, I'm trying to get onto the beginning of my spline. Some things just don't seem right. Yeah, this is going to be a really rough night for me. I can tell. All right. So if I hit up to get me to the beginning, delete, there we go. Why is everything fighting me tonight? All right. So like I was saying, you don't have to use that CSV creator. When you use the CSV creator, okay, you need to keep in mind that even though we're going to smooth the road out, a lot of those bumps are still going to stay in there because that smoothing is also going to be following that spline, if that makes any sense, right? So when we do the CSV creator, every little nook and cranny, every little bump, every divot, that spline is going to find them and it's going to follow them. Now, what I like to do ahead of time is like to pre-smooth my roads. I'll take my smoothing brush, I'll go over my roads, I'll smooth them out really nice first, right? And in this way, you know, when I come back with the CSV and I do that, then it's following a fairly straight, you know, smooth road. But you don't need to do that. You can make your spline, you know, keeping your control vertexes closer together. You know, you can do it that way where, like I said, you're not using that CSV creator. You're just kind of laying your spline out. And when you smooth out that road, it's going to follow your spline. And you can skip over a lot of those bumps and divots. And, you know, maybe there's a bump that you can cut through it. Or if there's a divot, you can go over top of it. Right. So these are all things that make a huge difference. Right. So like I said, you can do that if you want. You can keep these closer together and you don't need that next step. Now, I tend to keep it just because I think it makes things a little bit more natural, you know, especially around here, you know, in my area, you'd be lucky to find a smooth road around here. But I like that, you know, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I guess, you know, it depends on the situation, I guess, right? You know, and if you're finding that your roads are just a little too bumpy, so you can see what would be happening here, you know, it would cut through this. Overall, it wouldn't be too bad. Now, what you can do is if you find that, well, see, it's kind of hard because the damage is already done at that point. My next step from here is I would run that through the CSV creator and I would level out my roads. Let's just do it this way just to show you that you don't need the CSV creator for this step, all right? Now, like I said, for this, normally what I'm doing is I'm keeping my, I'm going to keep all my spline points much closer together now. Okay, so take Control B. Now I'm not too far apart with these. I'm going to keep them a lot closer together. And it's also not as straight, not as straight as my other one was. That's okay though, all right? Because when we have that spline, the placement tool, the version 1.3, now I have them putting, we're going to go back into that because I'm going to show you how to set some things up there. What was I going to say about that? Oh, I can't remember what I was going to say. Something with the version 1.3. You know, the reason that I don't do this anymore is I take my chances with that CSV creator. Is that CSV creator speeds up the process immensely. So if you did a pretty decent job ahead of time of smoothing out your road and making everything nice and neat, you know, you don't necessarily have to worry about, you know, all those bumps and divots and valleys. And all right, so this is one of the other things that I was going to tell you. Okay. Now there's other ways to get around. If you didn't want to have to mess with your roadway this way, let me show you here really quickly. Let me insert a point here. All right. And I'm going to put the next point right up here. I'm going to skip that whole center spot. All right. So that one I kind of had an eyeball in the middle. Now you can see what's happening here is it's going to cut right through that roadway. You can manipulate your spline, right? So instead of like bringing up the surface of your roadway, you can just bring your spline up, right? Because when you hit that, when you do that smooth feature, you know, it's going to follow your spline. It's not going to necessarily follow the road. It's going to bring the road surface up to your spline, right? So there you can give it a real nice natural like hump, right? Same thing down here. You can make sure that this, you know, that divot's not, you know, really bad, which it doesn't look too bad right there. All right. So like I said, I'm going to do this one a little bit differently and I'm going to skip that extra step there where I'm going to skip the step where I'm using a CSV creator and I'm going to take the spline and I'm going to go just right into terrain height setup. Okay. So we got that terrain height setup, center width of 8. Okay. And we are going to execute that with terrain height. Did that do anything? You know, it just seemed like last time this took really long to do. And this never does. I promise it does. It never ever takes long to do this height setup. Mine usually blasts through it, no problem whatsoever. This, for some reason, does not seem to be liking. Yeah, it is. Nope, it's not done. Huh. Yeah, the last video, I had to edit the actual video because it took forever. I'm telling you, I do 4-kilometer maps from one end to the other on some really hilly surfaces, and it does not take long for the height setup. For some reason, I have to go through my script. It's not liking this for some reason. And it generally is either what I'm asking it to do, and you're going to notice that if you're working with any of your spline tools, if it takes a really long time like this one is, it's generally what you're asking it to do. But in this case, I'm not really asking it to do anything above and beyond, like anything above and beyond. It's just a simple, smoothing of the roadway. Nothing crazy. I'm not adding any height to it. No, nothing crazy. So why this one's taking really long, I can't really say, but it should not be. I can tell you that it should not be taking this long. All right. So there's a good chance I may have to edit this one for time just so we don't have to sit here for 10 minutes and wait for my computer to spaz out over this. All right. So it's finally done. My goodness gracious. All right. So we have a tiny bit of touching up to do right here. We're going to do that right now. We're going to go into our sculpt tool, right? We're going to hit smooth, smooth, smooth. Maybe do a little takeaway there. A little subtract, subtract, subtract. Ooh, I didn't realize I'm all really taken away there. All right, now I'm going to put some of that back. I could have hit Control Z and undo that, but I guess that would be too easy. Like I said, what I'm doing here is I'm bringing it up to the surface of the spline like that. Okay. So that should have evened out that nice 8-meter wide pathway for us there. All the way up to our road surface. You know what? It does not seem like it did it? Did it? Because to me, my road doesn't look really even. That looks like it's on a bit of a slant right there. And I feel like my spline should be exposed. Like it didn't take away what I wanted it to do. All right, so let's go do this. Let's go into script editor. Window. We'll go into script editor. Okay, we're going to maximize this. All right, now what I'm doing here is I'm going to look for, we got paint terrain by spline, set terrain by, newest terrain height by spline. All right, I don't want to do that. I want to do the original. There we go. I have a couple of these. All right, so what was I doing? 8 meters, right? So we go through here. Let's go to terrain node and reflected. All right, so spline, please. Roll side 1 meter. No height offset. M side count. We're not at 15. We're going to do 4. All right. I'm just testing something here, so you don't need to do this on your maps. I'm just testing because something is wrong on my side where it should not be taking this long to level out a roadway. All right. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to run that one more time and just see if I get a different result this time. What was I on? Newest set terrain height by spline. Yeah, I definitely did something. All right. Not sure why. To me, it looks like this is on an angle. And it could be the direction that the spline is actually running. Sometimes you'll notice if your spline, if you reverse the direction on the spline, you'll get a completely different result. All right. So yeah, maybe that worked okay. I just wanted to test that. So we were okay, with this original, the original one that I ran. It looks like everything was fine. It's just me being a little bit goofy, which, that's to be expected, I guess, right? That's just the way I roll. All right. So from there, like I said, we did that by hand. We didn't have to worry about the CSV creator. It can go either way. You can use it or choose not to use it. It does speed up the process a lot more when you can just zip through, the contours of your road or the shape of your road, right? The path, and not have to worry about the contours, not have to worry about keeping your spline points, really close together. You can worry about keeping, nice even turns. And because you can see what I got down here from putting all those spline points down right in this area here, you can see I got some waviness going on, right? And if you're focusing on just keeping everything really nice and nice and neat, as far as, nice and straight, you wouldn't have that like I do here, because then you could just use the CSV creator and have that worry about, keeping your spline points close together. All right. But anyhow, we got that done. All right. Let's go back in the window. We're going to go in the script editor really quick because I just want to have a look at my spline placement execute. Okay. Now this here, I have all these extra ones. See where this is all grayed out up in here? This like a object distance. That's only because I have it set for different things. Like I have barbed wire fences, guardrails, lights, hedges, trees. It's only because I have a bad memory and I forget a lot of times. So I'll just comment one out and then I'll uncomment whatever I happen to be working on. So don't panic if yours doesn't look exactly like mine does. All right, remember that the object distance does not have to be 2. You can spread them out a little bit, but 2 is pretty ideal. No object at start. Keep that at true, or that's going to kind of goof up our placed objects when we export that. Stay upright. Make sure that that is true. You don't want that leaning all over the place, right? Because that's going to screw you up a little bit. You don't want to use the distance table. Random order is false. So basically everything is false until you get all the way down to the bottom, not at terrain 0. And you're good, right? So that stays true. The internal rotations, make sure none of that is set, and we're all set, okay? Just so I know somebody's gonna, wonder what my settings were there. All right, so spline placement stays highlighted. We can go up to scripts. Let's see. Back down to spline placement execute. That's gonna lay our post down for us. Okay, which it did. All right. And that followed the path that we set ourselves, so that's not so bad. Now you can see down here, it looks like that's going to be another one of them bumpity bumps, right? Where it's taking a pretty hard downward, whatever you want to call it, a downward approach or angle. You can tell what I'm getting. When it's just the night's getting long, I just start babbling. I can't think of the words that I want. All right, so like I said, from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down. If I can get that arrow key or the arrow without messing with it. All right, move that in a little bit to give myself some wiggle room. Now I'm actually just going to go up into my attributes, right? I'm going to go to translate Y. I'm going to make sure my bar comes up there. And I'm going to use my left and right arrow keys. Now, right now I'm using my right arrow key. See that line, how it's visible? I'm going to go boop, one down. All right, really easy. So it's not visible anymore. Now you can see between these two right here, between this post and this post, right? That's going to show you what your angle is going to be. So that's going to take a pretty hard dip into there. It kind of is what it is. To lessen that a little bit, you can actually delete that post. So now you're going from this post to this post. So that'll make it a little bit less, not a whole lot, but it will help a little bit. All right, so now we're going to go back up top here and the same thing here. Okay, we're going to take this post here. We're going to move it in a little bit. Now, the kick in the butt sometimes is you'll go through all of this, and then when you actually export all your data, you realize that your spline is not going in the right direction, so you get to delete it all and come back and do it again. Tons of fun. All right, so we got our post down. We got everything made it up to the intersection. Pretty nice. We're good to go. Now from here, it seems like some of you guys are getting confused at this step. So we're going to fix that right now. All right. We are not exporting the spline. The spline is just for us to use when we're laying down a roadway. It's not anything to do with the roadway itself, right? It's just for the objects. So you're not exporting the spline into the street constructor. Instead, all of these placed objects, you don't need to highlight every one of the objects. Just go up to placed objects, right? Highlight that transform group, go up to file, go down to export selection. There we go. Now let's go find our objects. I have an objects folder here. I don't know what I did with it. There it is. Go into roads, placed objects, Save. Yes, we want to overwrite it. Okay. Now from there, we're going to go into our text editor because we already have that open in there. Click yes. And here we go. Now here's a good example of what I was just talking about. Okay. So now looking at this, you can remember what I said. You want to look for 0, 0 on your X and your Z. Got to be zeros. These are not. These all say 180 straight down the list. Okay. That's not good. All right. What we're going to need to do is we're going to fix this right now. Okay. So let's head back. Well, if you run into this, I know your roads don't look exactly like mine. Do I have 2 editors open? No wonder I have problems some days. All right. So when you run into an issue like that, right? You went into your editor, you had a look, and you got all 180s. Okay. What you need to do is come back here, go back to your placed objects. Well, spline placement. All right. You're going to delete all of your placed objects. Get rid of them all. All right. Highlight your spline and reverse it. Reverse your spline. Go back up the spline placement. Go back up the scripts execute. Oh my God. And go up to execute scripts and then down to spline placement execute. All right. This is what I was just saying before. You're going to have to reline these up, and it's not a big deal. It's just, having to do things twice isn't always ideal. But it is what it is. All right. Now, like I said, I'm going to go translate Y. I'm going to use my right arrow key to raise that. All right. See, when I can see it fully visible, I just go down one and then there I go. All right. And that's that line at the bottom of the post that I'm looking at. All right. Now I'm going to head down this way. And I'm going to do the same thing with this post. I'm just going to bring it forward like so. My mouse feels touchy today for some reason. All right. Translate Y. I'm going to hit the left arrow key. Okay, right there. And I'm going to bring that in just a hair like that. And I'm going to delete this post to try to lessen that nosedive it's taken there at the end of the road. Okay, back up top. And again, remember, placed objects, highlight placed objects. Nothing to do with your spline. File, export selection, placed objects, save. Yes. Back into your text editor. Yes. All right, now you can see we're all zeros. Everything looks really, really good all the way down to the bottom. Now, every once in a while when you do this, depending on how long of a run you're making, or maybe if you're making a turn in your road, maybe your road's turning somewhere, okay? You might find just a small patch somewhere in here, like everything is all zeros, but maybe somewhere down towards the bottom, you have a small patch of 180s, okay? From there, what you want to do is you want to just highlight that patch. Okay. Say this little patch right here that I've highlighted are 180s. All right. You're going to hit, Control H, bring that up. All right. Now you're going to find what? You're going to want to find 180 and you're going to want to replace it with a 0. Now you want to go into match whole word only. My goodness gracious. Match case doesn't matter. In selection, make sure that's matched. So you're trying to minimize the number of 180s. If you don't click in selection, it's going to look on the whole page and it's going to start changing other 180s that you don't want it to change, right? So you want to try to minimize it just to this little area, this in selection. Have it match whole word only, because this way, if it's part of a bigger number, that doesn't try to change it. All right. So that's if you just have a small patch somewhere in the middle of your data points here, right? That says like 180, 180. You can switch them over to 0 if it's not a lot. Now you cannot do it like what we were just looking at where the entire page said 180. Don't try to be lazy. Go back, reverse your spline and do it this way. Don't try to just, hit replace, it does not work. It's going to throw all kinds of errors at you. And then it's going to cop an attitude and hate you for a while. And every road you try to make after that, it's just going to give you a hard time. Don't go there. All right. All right. So sometimes you get a mixed bag. Like I said, you'll get this a lot if your road makes like a hard bend. Like maybe say you go down so far and then you make a right-hand turn and go so much further. You're bound to run into that under those circumstances. And you gotta have to try to weight it too. Like sometimes you have multiple areas where you have little chunks of 180 that you need to fix. Might be 2-3 areas, but you need the 0, like 0, 0, like you're seeing here. That needs to be the bulk of it. If you have more 180s than you do zeros, reverse your spline, right? But if it looks like this and you have mostly zeros and only a small patch of 180s here or there, then you can hit that replace function and replace the 180s with zeros. All right, so I just wanted to get that out there. So that looks pretty good, right? So we reversed the spline, everything went back to zeros. We hit Control S to save. Go back into the street constructor. We're going to reload that one, right? Reload our placed objects. All right, 245 spline points. Looks pretty good. That's it. I'm going to click go. Go, go, go. Okay, and then we're going to import this one back in. All right, completed road. Drag that in. All right, sounds right. There is kind of a bit of a slope going on there, right? But it does not look bad because why? I'm that good. That's why. All right. So let's clean this up really quick and we're probably going to wrap this video up. All right. And don't worry, there will be a video number 4 probably because there's not too much more that I can go over. I want to do a few roads with you guys so you can watch me do, you know, a handful of roads. What am I doing, Bauer? You are just losing it. Yeah, I got to stop doing these videos so late at night because it's just, oh my goodness. I just forget what I'm doing now. You see what I did there? Mine is still named RD1 because I forgot to change that in my program. This is what I mean. At some point, you're going to have 10 of these floating around where you're not going to know which one is which. I should have changed that to RD2, but now I'm going to change it to RD3 so my next road comes out right. Now, what you could do is open this up and rename your road so that has the right name, RD2. And it is kind of important that you have these named correctly so you know what's what, especially if you're doing like a traffic system or something. You know, your splines need to be, you know, labeled correctly. All right, so from up here, since our road looks pretty good, before I delete things, what I'll normally do is I'll travel the length of my roadway like so. All right, and I'll just check everything out to see where it looks good. Okay, make sure everything looks good. Now, what I'm kind of looking for is you're going to see this at some point, one point or another. Oh man, that's way out of line right here. When these are out of line like this, I don't usually bother running the road again because I don't have any other streets attached to any of the other branches. I will just click on the intersection as long as I don't have to move it too far, and I will scoot the intersection over just like so. All right. And now that's probably the only time you can do it because once you have other roads connect to it, you can't really move that around without messing up, you know, what you did over here. So you're going to have to be a lot more careful on your next roads. So you can see how this is over here now. It's lined up a little too far, but it's fine. You know, that'll be just fine. All right, so everything looked pretty good. And what I was saying before is inevitably it's going to happen where your road is going to look like little pieces of broken glass, like jagged spikes that you're going to be like, what the heck is going on with my road? All right. And what that is it's kind of freaking out when it's doing the I can't think of things tonight. Oh my God. Restructuring is what I want to say, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Anyhow, like a subdivide. Oh my God, Bauer, get it together, man. When it goes through the subdivision, sometimes depending on the data points, it freaks out a little bit. This is why I say it's really important to not have your spline follow or have your objects, when you lay your objects down, to have them not follow the terrain, have them follow the spline, because that problem is decreased dramatically. I don't think I really run into that issue too many times. But if you have your objects follow the terrain, then you're bound to run into that issue. Now, there is the way to fix it, because I still did have it come up when I have my objects following the spline. It has still come up on me. All right. So there is a way to get around that. And I'm not going to get into it now, but not hopefully, I really don't want it to happen, but I'll try to walk you through that in the next video of what to do in the event that happens. And it looks horrible. All right. Now, sometimes you even have to go as far as doing your road in pieces, right? So you might, maybe you run your road so far, say you ran it, and about halfway down, it just started going to crap, right? Your road looks horrible. Things just don't look good. No bueno, right? So then you can't really do much else except for you can try to run the road from the other direction instead of running from this intersection to that intersection, right? What I would normally do, all right, for example, let's say, really quick here, we're running short on time. Let's say this much of your roadway all the way down here looked really good. And you have a patch in here that just looks horrible. Couldn't fix it. You turned all of your 180s into zeros. It still looks like total crap. What do you do? All right. So what I normally do in this case, when that happens, all right, and I just can't get around it, I can't work around it, I'm going to try and shoot some future videos when that problem does come up to show you. But what I'll do is I'll keep my objects on my spline, and I'll keep, the crappy roadway down there. Okay. And then I'll highlight this object, right? And I'll make sure I'm going in the right way. Yep. And I would delete everything from there down, right? So I'd keep this highlighted right here. And I would go to the very end, like so. I would delete all of those, and I would just run, and then I would export just these, okay? So that would give me a road that stopped right there to where the road started going really crappy. All right. So then what I could do is either come in from the other direction, run my road from the other direction, because there's a pretty good chance you're going to be able to do that at that point, or just start here and run it again. You know what I mean? You're going to have to do it in pieces. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I've already had to do roads in 3, 4, 5 different pieces. I had to piece it all together because that's what it took. Now, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So keep that in mind. That's something you may come across where your road just goes goofy on you and there's not a whole lot you can do to fix it. You're going to notice that the shorter runs, if you're not doing anything super crazy, you're not making any like really, really hard turns or going up like super steep elevations. Like if it's a pretty straightforward road, it's a shorter road, not incredibly long. And like I said, not doing anything like really crazy. Things tend to work out pretty well. I mean, you can see, I only did 2 roads so far on this map, but it didn't go too bad, right? Everything went pretty well. All right, let's hide this. Remember to bring your spline. Don't get rid of your spline. Just highlight it and move it down into that group there, okay? Now from here, it's just going back and cleaning up your road. You can use the smooth button to try to smooth most of that out. If I can, I try to smooth it before I actually use, the right mouse button and take away. Because you don't want to take away too much. And I keep these turned down pretty low when you're doing that. When you're cleaning up your roadway, keep your opacity and your value down pretty low. And this way you're not taking off, big hunks, because you will have to come back and touch this up later. Now with me, I don't use borders, right? So my road is completely flat. And a lot of times you won't even notice that there's a big giant gap beneath your road. It's like an optical illusion until you actually go and you play it and you try to like either drive up to it or you drive off the edge of it. And you're like, holy cow, what happened to your road? But it's a trade-off. You're going to have to come through and touch up your roads and make them nice and smooth. Make sure you don't have any of that stuff going on where you can see underneath your roadways. All right. But like I said, on the other hand, compared to a border, everything looks nice and neat. You don't have anything that you're trying to cover up a border. It looks really nice and neat. So there might be areas where it's not completely flush. The ground isn't completely flush with the road, but it's really hard to tell. All right. So that's why I tend to use a flat road. It just looks better. All right. So there you go. Now you could even see partway down the road. All right. See right in here where it kind of goes all over the place. That's where I got a little bit crooked with my road. And it will follow your spline pretty darn well. You don't really have to worry about, it not following your spline. So even this doesn't look too bad. Our transition right up here, up into our intersection, looks pretty darn good. See how that looks? That is actually one of my better ones, I would like to think, right? Because even on my next map, I don't know, maybe I should redo it. I have some pretty sharp transitions off of my intersections, but this is not bad. This looks pretty good. All right. And the way I got this effect was to pull up on that spline, right? I didn't leave the spline exactly where it was. I manipulated that spline because I know when I level the surface of my roadway, it's going to bring up the, as long as I'm set at 0, my center width is 8, but my spline height is 0. That means it's going to bring the surface of the roadway up to my spline. Okay. So that's how I achieved that effect. I got that, you know, that nice smooth transition is by moving my spline. Now, sometimes you're going to notice, like you see here, see this discoloration. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 stripes there. Now, what happened there is that's a subdivision. Okay. So this must have hit an angle, you know, when we were setting the settings here, right? See these settings where I have this angle here, this bending. I think this was the slope, that 10 degrees. So what I did is I probably exceeded that 10 degrees at this point and started subdividing. So that's where you can, you know, you can see that discoloration. That's what happened there. All right. Now, every once in a while, when you see these discolorations, you're going to get some bumpity bumps. When you come down your road, you're going to, it's going to feel like a, what are those, like the ridges they put on the side of the road, you know, like when you're falling asleep at night, you know, and brrr, it's going to be something like that. All right. But it's not too bad. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. This one doesn't look too bad. Normally, you can tell by looking at the stripe on the side of the roadway if, you know, you got anything going on with your road. But this does not look bad. All right. So once again, my last video was 1 hour and 20 minutes. And this one looks like it's going to be 1 hour and 20 minutes. So, but there's a lot to learn. And I want to go over all of this with you guys. So you get a good handle on this because it's not a very complicated program, but there is a bit of a learning curve. The more you use it, the better you get. All right. Now you're eventually, like I said, you're going to come across problems that you're not going to really know what to do with, you know, like what the hell do I do about that? And I'm hoping to either recreate some of those issues or maybe we will run into them and I can show you how to get past those issues. Okay. Or if not, what I'll do is I'll try to recreate some of them on a sample map and see if I can get this thing to goof up and show you how to fix those mistakes. Because some of them are really tough to fix. But for the most part, like I said, it's a pretty straightforward program. And as long as you keep your spline simple, nothing too crazy, right? Don't get all out of hand with it and, you know, try these super crazy designs. Everything should go pretty well for you. Okay. And you can see my road system here. You know, it's not too crazy. Right. And everything so far is turning out pretty well. All right. Everything looks good. It's lined up okay. Like I said, on this one here, remember that we skipped the step with the CSV creator. All right. Now, a lot of people, because what I did here is I could have manipulated that spline any way that I wanted. You know, I could have made a big bump in the middle of my road. So it's going to follow your spline. Keep that in mind. So, you know, if you're cutting through or you're cutting into your ground, it's going to do the same thing when you flatten that area out, you know, in preparation for your road surface. But like I said, I like to use the CSV only because most people, when you put down your object, you want it to follow the terrain. Okay. You know, you want it to follow the hills and the valleys and stuff like that. So go through ahead of time, smooth it out, then run your CSV creator, and then re-import that second spline and then use that for all of your future work. Now, keep that in mind though, with that CSV creator, it's going to pick up everything, right? Any bumps and all that stuff. The one thing you can do to get around that is, or not around it, but to lessen it, is when you run the creator, it'll ask you how far apart you want your spline or your control vertexes. I generally use 5. You can increase that number a little bit and it'll lessen that a little bit for you, right? It'll smooth things out a little bit. All right. But I always use that because I don't know, like I said, it's just easier. It's a lot easier to work on the curves of your road, make sure your road is straight and nice and not like this where I have that zigzag in the middle of it. All right. But we'll go over that again. The next video, we're going to do yet another road. And I'll go over a few more things with you. All right. Now, normally that doesn't take an hour and 20 minutes per section. It only takes that long when I'm trying to blab to you guys about everything you need to be doing. Right? But you can see, though, that it turned out pretty nice, right? A little bit of a bump here. So, I don't know, you can put in guardrails, or you can even fill in this section. That's not a big deal either. You know, you come through and just use your plus button and fill all that in. You know, why not? And in this way, you'll never even know it was there, because you're that good, right? At least by the time you're done with all my series, I'm hoping that you're going to be that good, right? Because, you know, not all my stuff turned out the way I wanted to, but maybe yours will. You could be the next great one. So that's the whole purpose of me doing these videos, is that somebody out there somewhere is going to turn into one hell of a map maker, right? And then I can stand proud that I did my job and I helped you get to be the map maker that you are today, or you will be tomorrow. Oh, I don't know. But anyhow, like I said, this video is getting long. I'm already past 1 hour and 20 minutes. So with that being said, if you found this video like useful, helpful in any way, shape, or form, please like and subscribe. It really does help me out. And that's it. I'm Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.